All right, continuing on from the last video, we have our hit working. So when we run our application, where's our application? Right there. So when we go up, we can see that when it hits the rect, the invisible rect that we created, we get all these hits, and it's constantly showing hit because it's inside of our game loop. We want to go ahead and add all the other collision detections there for all the other rects that we created. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and change my navigation because I don't just want this to say hit. I want this to go into my navigation as it did before with the buttons. And so I'm going to have to change a few things within my navigation. Go down here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my navigation class. And in my navigation class, there's a few things I need to change. Number one, there's a few things we're going to change here. But before we even change it here, we have to actually add a few things inside of our cave class. So let me explain this really quick. Right now, when you look at, not that one, when you look at our JSON file, our JSON file has some interesting activity going on, meaning a cave holds a list of other caves, and it actually doesn't just hold a reference to those caves, it actually holds the actual cave itself, which means we have to write out all of this stuff with the cave, right? So we got it to work, which is fine, but we can make this a little bit easier done by just adding a reference to a cave, and then whatever that cave has, we just collect it that way, So instead of having all the information to every cave inside of each cave, which is almost like a recursive thing going on here, we want to make it a little bit easier and shorten up our JSON file and make it even more readable, because this is really not that readable. And that's a huge thing when it comes to JSON and, object-oriented programming. We want to just add a reference to the cave. So that's what we're going to do, and that's why we have to change our cave class. So when I go here to my cave class, first of all, I don't really want to have this as a dictionary of string and then a dictionary of caves. I'm just going to go ahead and add a reference to the cave, which can just be a string. All right, that's part one. That's the first refactoring we're going to do. And the second part that we're going to do is we're going to leave the direction that the cave exists in, but we're just going to change this to, they all start off as locked caves. So I'm just going to put locked here. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that on all the caves. I'm sorry, all the doors to the caves. All right. Now, in order to fix this error, I just need to go up here. Instead of this being caves, I need to add that as string. Now, I'm going to have to go here to this link to cave, and I'm going to change that to a string because I don't want to have a bunch of caves within a bunch of caves. Remember what we talked about with the JSON file, so that's what we're doing. We're fixing all of that. And over here, I'm not going to return a cave. I'm going to return a string. And that by itself fixes all of our issues with our cave. Now, I also want, when this information comes in, when this linked information comes in, I don't want to check whether it's nothing, because nothing is like null, and null is for objects. So because I'm checking for a string value, I'll just put equals nothing, basically. Like that. And this looks fine. Now down here, when I accept a cave or a direction, when I accept a direction in here, I want to check and see if the door location, which is this value here, I want to see if it says none, or actually I want to see if it says locked, actually, not none. So I'm going to do something like this. So if the door location equals locked, And then I'll just return that the door's locked. And then I'm going to do an else if. Door location is nothing. Like that. And if you hear those dogs back there, that's whenever somebody comes over and, you know, they bother me when I'm coding, I sick the dogs on them. And I don't have dogs, so how I sick them on them is another coding trick I'll teach you guys later on. But that's the barking you hear in the background. Just people getting eaten by some virtual dogs. Actually, I programmed them. All right, so now that we have this set, my cave, the cave itself is actually looking pretty good. That's exactly the fixes that I wanted. Now, because my application actually in here, it automatically is trying to create these caves, but you notice when I try to create a cave, is looking for an actual cave here. So this is something now that I have to fix. And we can see the errors all throughout this, and we're going to go through these errors and fix these one at a time. But whenever you change one thing, you have to refactor, so you got to go through and actually change the other things that actually use it. So that's pretty much what we're going to do here. But instead of saying an actual object cave, we're going to go ahead and add that as a string. And I'm just going to go something like this, right? So I'm going to do that for all of them, but I'm going to pause it and go ahead and finish that. There we go. And this right here, I want the cave to use that as an ID. So when I go here back into my cave, I want to go ahead and add something called, right under this cave number, I want to add an ID to every cave. So every cave has an ID, and that ID would be like cave A, cave B, C, or whatever, right? So I'm going to add myself another property, and it's going to be ID. And I'm going to just consider it a public property. So I'll just keep it as public property. I'm going to call it ID, and I'll have it as a string. That's fine. I don't need to have a private and a public for this. We don't have to get too exact on this. So this is fine. So now I'm going to go back to my main window, and then I'm going to go ahead and set the cave ID for each cave, since I'm setting everything here. So when it writes it to the JSON file, it's going to go ahead and add that to the JSON file. So I'll say cave A .id. As you can see, we made it public, and that ID will equals cave A. And then I'll go ahead and do the rest of the caves. So let me pause this for a second. All right, so here I have cave A, B, and C, and D, and they all have their ID set. All right, so now we're well on our way to actually converting everything to a better looking JSON and a much more efficient game. Now over here I have my navigation, so I'm gonna double click on that, and you'll look here where this direction is going into this enter door. Now this enter door is trying to return a cave. So you see value of type string cannot be converted to a cave. So it's trying to take this string value and put it into this current cave, and the current cave actually is a cave. So now we got to do some work on our navigation to make all this work right. What we're going to do though is we're going to go ahead and keep this part right there for now, but we're going to go ahead and fix the fact that when we run our application, when we first run our application, there is no direction on the move. So it's moving around, right? But you don't start off in a going through a door, meaning you don't have a direction of north, east, south, or west. So we're going to get a null or empty value. So we have to set up for that. So I'm going to put an if statement here in case the direction is empty. So I'm going to write that if the direction is empty, and then I can go ahead and return this navigation. And instead of saying returning navigation, I'm just saying return me, meaning return this navigation class. Now, after that, I want to go ahead and take the current navigation and keep it, put it as a previous in case I need it back, in case something wrong happens here and I need to go ahead and put whatever navigation I once was back to the current. So that's why I'm saving it into this almost temporary area here. Now, what I do want though is I want a cave ID inside of here, and I want a private cave ID, and then I want a public cave ID inside of my navigation, because I don't want people to know what I'm doing with that cave ID. So I'm going to go ahead and make a private property, and that's going to be underscore cave ID, and the public name will be cave ID. All right, now to fix this part right here. So after I have that current cave, I'm going to go ahead and set the cave ID. So I'm going to say this internal cave ID will equal to a list of caves. I need a list of caves in here. So in order for this to work, I'm going to need the initial list of caves inside of this navigation so I can know, the navigation needs to know what it's navigating through. So we don't have a recursive list. We'll just have a static list of caves directly from the JSON file, directly from the main window. And so let me go ahead and declare myself a dictionary. It's going to be public, so I'm not really worried about that. That's going to be caves as a new dictionary. It's going to be a dictionary of strings and caves. All right, and this cave I don't really have to necessarily instantiate, but and I haven't really filled it yet. I haven't filled it yet at all. But what I wanted to be able to do is go down here and take the cave, and I wanted to get the item from the cave, and the item from the cave will be the ID. And let me go and show you this really quick. Remember, the ID was the cave name there that we set up there. So instead of me putting it directly in there, explicitly in there, I'm just going to go ahead and use my current cave ID. So that's the current cave, and then it has an ID associated with it. Now that's going to return to me from this dictionary whatever cave has this current ID. So let's say, for instance, here inside of my main window, I have cave B, right? Which is cave B's ID. What's going to happen here, where am I? What's going to happen here is inside of this list of caves, it's going to search for cave B ID, and it's going to return the actual cave to me. Now, this right here is just a string. So this won't work for this. So once it returns this cave to me, I'm now going to go inside of that cave. And each cave has something called an enter door based off of what we wrote previously. And now I wanted to go ahead and use this direction in that enter door procedure. And that's going to return to me whatever door I enter is going to return to me that cave's ID. So hopefully that's clear enough for you. This right here I can pretty much get rid of. Yeah, I can get rid of that. Let's see. So that looks good. And I do want to know if the cave was locked. I want to go ahead Yeah, so I want to know if the cave was locked. This cave ID that I get back. This is where I'm going to use this right here, but it's going to be opposite. So I'm going to say that the current cave equals the previous cave. After that happens, I'll go ahead and return myself the navigation, this current navigation. And then, but if this doesn't happen, I'm going to want, I don't need all of this here. So if that doesn't happen, I'm going to go ahead and proclaim the current cave will equal, I'm just going to pull from the caves, and I'm going to pull an item from the cave, and that item will be with the ID, this ID right here, because it wasn't locked. And so therefore I can pull from this list of caves that I brought in and make it the current cave. And now to make sure that I'm getting the current cave, I'm going to take this current cave and I'm going to put it in as the title. And that's going to be the current status of my navigation. And I'm not returning anything except for my navigation. So here my stat is just updating the navigation. Okay, so that's very important to understand. So I'm going to do a quick check here. Let me go to my cave. All that looks good. All right, so now all I need to do is in my navigation, I have this dictionary of caves. Okay, so I'm going to have to take, once I get it from out of here, I'm going to have to take the caves that I get from my JSON file and go ahead and fill it with that dictionary of caves I have inside of that navigation. And I'm going to do that in here. So instead of putting this here, I'm not going to write it out. I'm already done with those tests. I'm going to take these values from here and I'm going to go inside of my nav.caves, and I'm going to go ahead and add for each one of these caves, I'm going to add it to that list. But I need that cave's ID first, because remember it's an ID, and then it takes a cave as a dictionary. All right, now next, what I want to do after I receive this focus, or even before I receive the focus, I can go ahead and I want to set the current cave now. So once I have this, I'm going to set the current cave inside of, because remember, this is when it first runs. So I need to set the current cave when it initially runs, when my application initially runs. So I'm going to say nav that current cave is going to be the nav.caves. From that list of caves, I want to pull an item from that list of caves. And I'm just arbitrarily deciding where I want to start. Okay, so it's not on any particular cave, but I will just say I'm going to start on cave A. And there's probably a better way we could do this, but I'm just going to say this is where we always start on this particular cave game, cave A. So it's going to go inside of those caves, pull cave A out, the actual cave, and it's going to set that as the current cave to my nav. All right, so now that we have that, I want to go ahead and change the label that we see initially to what we have set here. So I'm going to say lbl data.content is going to equal the nav current status, because remember we set the current status to the current cave. All right, so that looks about right. Let me look at this. So now we got all that working. So now inside of our hits test that we did in the last video, I want to, instead of putting something like that, if it hits the north barrier, I'm going to set the direction. I'm going to set it up here as a string. So first let me set this direction here, and it's going to be private. All right, and go back down here. And then I'm going to set this direction. It's going to equals, this is the north. Yes, this is the north gate. All right, now in order to see this actually work, we have to go ahead and move using our navigation. We have to move using our navigation, and we're going to use in our navigation our move function that we created here. That returns a navigation, but yet it does all this work for us. It sets the current cave, it checks the current cave, and it checks to see if it's locked. And so every time we move something, we have to use this move command to set it inside of our navigation. So what I'm going to do before I do any of this is I'm going to go ahead and set this navigation. I'm going to set my label right here. I'm going to run this really quick. I shouldn't get any errors because we refactored everything properly. We still get this done. That's good. Now we have to set our navigation so when I touch this up here, it's going to change this here, and when I touch this up here, it moves us to the next cave. So that's what we need to do here first. And so I'm going to take that label.data, and I'm going to take the content, and that's going to equal, let me just put something here, current cave. So this is going to get the current cave from the nav, and we're going to use that move function, and we're going to give it the direction that we set. And then we want the current status of the cave. All right. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to go ahead and run this here. Now, as you can see down there, it says cave B. We're now in cave B because I went up. And all I need to do is set the other caves because right now I'm just in cave B. And none of the other rectangles or the rects are set for collision. We only set one. So all we got to do is set the rest of those. So let's go ahead and do that. And right now we're getting that whole thing here. Current cave, you're in. And maybe I shouldn't even add it the rest because I did it all in the other. I don't even need to add that right there. I'm going to run that. There we go. You are in, that's the name of the cave, cave B. And I just need to do the other side. So I'm going to pause this and do this exact same thing for the other side. So here I have everything written here for the other sides, and all I got to do is run this. Now when I go up there, I go to cave B. As you see, cave A over there, cave D, and cave C down there. So let's verify this actually with our map. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. Let's just stop it actually. I'll just run it. And then I'll pull my caves over here. So right now I'm in cave A, as we can see here. I'm in cave A. So if I go north, I should be in cave B. So let me go north. So that's wrong. Let me see. Oh no, sorry. That's correct. I went east, so I ended up in cave D, right? So let's see what happens. I'm in cave D. I'm going to go north now. Now I'm in cave B here. So let me try to go south. So I'm going to go south. I'm in cave C. That's correct. And now I'm going to go west. I'm going to go south again. Nothing happens because there's nothing there, right? So I'm still in cave C. Now I can put a thing here that says, hey, you can't enter that cave or something like that, right? So, but it's just empty, so it doesn't do anything. I'm going to go west. Cave A. I'm in cave A. And let's go north now again. Go north, and I'm in cave B. Now, I'm following exactly the the map that I started off in the beginning. And this is the whole point, right? We're full circle now. This is where we started the idea of these caves. We created the logic first of how you navigate through these caves. Then we went to the interface of where we would go, how the interface would work with this logic. We didn't create the interface and then try to figure out the logic from there. It's an important pathway that we took. You know, we drew out the logic, then we wrote out the logic, then we coded the logic. And now we're advancing on that base, on that code base that we created based on the logic. That's the most important part about this. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to clean this up a bit, start adding some real backgrounds, and then having the character go literally from, right now, he is literally going from one cave to the next. Now we're just going to load those caves, the backgrounds and stuff like that inside of these caves. So we're going to give the cave some imagery and stuff to be able to see now our game come full circle with the interface and everything else completed. We can actually even take this and add some gravity or something like that to it. Then we'll add some enemies that we can shoot and kill. So we'll add that later on. But we can now actually start getting our look together. We're not going to complete the look. We're just going to kind of get it together so we can feel like this game is coming together the way we want. Because we got the logic the way we want, we got to make sure the look now catches up with our logic. All right, so I'll see you guys next time. Make sure you share this video and make sure you subscribe. Bye.